Hi everyone, Carter Krishnar here for the Florida Squeeze, a publication that doesn't really exist anymore, but I feel like obviously the YouTube channel still exists with historical videos and Florida natural videos, and I felt like should address this very, very sad and unfortunate assassination on Charlie Kirk, who I'm someone who comes from the left politically, but Charlie Kirk, and maybe this is going to get me canceled, but he's someone I was beginning to actually like and respect in the last few years. And you have to understand, I'm someone who was thrust into politics when I was in college, just like he was. And I was president of the College Democrats at the University of Florida. You have to have a capacity to appreciate that people can evolve over time. And I think he was becoming a much more nuanced, mature leader of the right. And in fact, the right, not the alt-right. I want to address the alt-right in a minute in this video. But I think he was someone who had a capacity, showed a capacity to grow. He was really beginning to have a dialogue and a conversation with people of my political persuasion. And let me talk about myself for a minute in reference to this before we get to the whole thing about political violence. I have been a Democrat my entire life, but I said some things when I was younger, when I was the same age as the things that people on the left are saying Charlie Kirk said, that I don't love now that I'm in my 50s. I was a Democrat, but I also was one of these Democrats who felt, okay, we need to moderate. I'm so far left on environmental issues, which I am. I'm one of these tree huggers, or whatever the verbiage is now, for climate change. It's my number one issue. Environmental issues are my number one issues, and I'm I'm on the left economically. So there would be this natural tendency to try and go right on social issues, and I did that. I have supported the flying of the Confederate flag in the past, publicly. Do I regret that now? Yeah. I have said, even though, as it turns out, you see my skin color, and I am of a colored race, that that maybe interracial marriage, maybe the Loving decision was incorrect from the Supreme Court in the 1960s, and the issue of marriage should be thrown back to the states. And here in Florida, where interracial marriage was banned in Florida, so maybe it should be banned again. I said things like that when I was younger, to appear more moderate, to appear like I was more in the mainstream. And I think Charlie Kirk, at times, younger, said things as the head of Turning Point USA to motivate people on his side. I said it to try and appeal to older line conservative Democrats in Florida who may be suspicious of me because I was a young activist, and I was a college student, and then immediately after college, and then I'm of a colored race. I'm a person of color, I guess that's the correct term. Colored race is the term we used then. Sometimes I'm bad with the verbiage, right? I would say I would overcompensate. So that's something to understand. Now on this scourge of political violence, there are people on the right saying it is the liberals, it is the left that does it. And the media, the corporate media, the media which is run by corporate paymasters, whether it's Comcast owning NBC Universal, or Disney owning ABC, or Viacom or Paramount now owning CBS, or David Zaslav, who has a checkered history in the corporate world, running the parent company of CNN. You are seeing this parroted, and no discussion of January 6th. Now, when they push back, they say, oh, Josh Shapiro's home was firebombed, Melissa Holtman was murdered, Gretchen Whitmer was almost kidnapped, so it's equal between left and right, without even talking about Jan 6, which is the single biggest violent action politically in this country going back to since Reconstruction, basically, since the Reconstruction era, or since the Wilmington coup in 1898, which was, by the way, a right-wing coup. Right-wing white Democrats overthrowing more liberal black Republicans and Republicans who supported black suffrage. Okay, so let's Let's not forget January 6th, and yet the media wants to forget January 6th. They want to continue to focus on these one-on-one, one-off assassination attempts or signs of violence. Secondly, the media is repeating, parroting, oh, this political violence is new in America. Tell Medgar Evers that. Tell Harry T. Moore here in Mims, Florida. Well, I'm not in Mims, Florida. I'm not in Brevard County currently, but here in Florida that. Oh, his wife too. She got murdered. Tell Cheney, Goodman, and Schwerner's parents, Rita Schwerner, Andrew Schwerner's widow, that there was no political violence before 2016 or 17 or whatever date they pick. I mean, are they for real? Do they know so little about American history? And I'm finding a lot of people, even on the left, who advocate a woke history and say, oh, well, the conservatives are into myth making, which they are, about American history. And 250 next year is going to be full of myths. I now write about history professionally, so I've done maybe more research than others. But even on the left, there are people who completely misrepresent the historical record. And they'll get obsessed with race and slavery and all this, but then they're not actually looking critically at a lot of the origins of the American state and the American mindset, right? They want to gloss over that too. Political violence has been part of the United States since the beginning. And I'm not just talking about 1804 and a duel between between Hamilton and Burr, or any number of duels involving Jackson and Thomas Hart Benton and people like that after that. I'm not just talking about Preston Brooks caning Charles Sumner on the floor of the U.S. Senate. That's not political violence? Sumner almost died while Brooks was being cheered on by other Southerners. The media is out to lunch, totally. So what can we do? Charlie Kirk's assassination is a terrible thing. It is a terrible thing, and it's an escalation on this slippery slope we're on. So what we have to do is tune out the media, tune out social media, which has been provocative, and the people who sit on, I don't know how I did this, because I guess 10 years ago I was on Twitter all day, even when I was working in an office. I don't know how I did it. I must have been such a shitty person to have been doing that. I don't know how people sit on Twitter all day. And then there are these people who just react to like everything on Twitter or everything on social media. Oh, did you know this? The news cycle, and this does not happen in other countries. I'm telling you, like, politics is not a 365-day, 24/7 thing in France or in Germany or in Canada, although Canada's getting quite bad too, right? Canada, as always, has to copy the US in so many things, even though they want to be they want to be known as not being American, but yet they copy some of the worst aspects of American culture. We have to get past this. I'm devastated by Kirk's death, or disappointed by it. I shouldn't say devastated. That's too strong a term. Now I'm using the terminology that a lot of right-wing influencers are using. We're devastated. Let's get revenge. No, we gotta take the air out of this tire at this point. Bad analogy, maybe. Elon Musk, you've got to police Twitter better, okay? You talk about free speech, but it's free speech for thee and not for me and not for thee. You know, it's just crazy. And then we have to have a reckoning with the idea that violence is not an answer. And again, I think Charlie Kirk, it's possible he was killed by someone. We don't know yet. It's possible he was killed by someone on the alt-right. Because as I said, he was moderating, he was growing, he was maturing. I was beginning to like him, even as someone from a different political persuasion. Here's a guy that was listening. Here was a guy that was talking to me. Steve Bannon isn't talking to me. Right? I mean, there's like a clear division now. The Laurel Loomers, those sorts of people, they're not communicating with us. Charlie Kirk was. Actually, someone else who is Marjorie Taylor Greene, believe it or not. Maybe I shouldn't go down that rabbit hole today. Maybe that's a mistake. But I'm seeing she's growing in office. Look, I'm a very tolerant person. And because I'm a tolerant person, I tend to see these sort of moderating trends in people that maybe liberal activists write off and say, you know, there's a capacity to grow. Have I seen that sort of growth? I mean, the most natural comparison with Marjorie Taylor Greene is Lauren Boebert. Have I seen that kind of growth out of Lauren Boebert? Absolutely not. I think she's nuts. I think she's horrible. Have I seen growth out of Marjorie Taylor Greene? Yeah. Okay, so she was a QAnon person when she got elected. You tend to adapt to your surroundings, and people change and evolve over time. So I'm very open to this. And I think the left needs to be open to this. The left needs to think, okay, not all of these people are horrible. Not all of these people are fascists. Stop using that term about most of them, because it doesn't apply to most of them. It does apply to some of them, it doesn't apply to most of them. Similarly, to the right, and to people who have called me specifically a communist, even though I'm probably to the right of them on some issues related to trade and free market stuff. I'd like to actually see a competitive marketplace. I don't want to see government subsidies. I don't want to see government picking winners and losers in the corporate world. I don't want to see mega consolidation of companies. Okay, so I think I'm actually to the right of many Republicans, including some people specifically, I'm not going to name them, who have called me a communist or a socialist in writing in the past. We got to stop that. Stop calling people on the left communists and socialists, and people on the left stop calling people on the right fascist. And let's try and get over this. This should be a tipping point. And Charlie Kirk ran an organization called Turning Point USA. Maybe the turning point, unfortunately, very sadly for him and his family, is this horrible assassination of his. Because part of what he was doing, like I said, was listening to people like me, having a dialogue. Now, of course, he pushed back, but he was having a dialogue. Steve Bannon isn't having a dialogue with me. Tommy Robinson, if you're a fan of the UK politics, he's not having a dialogue with me. Daryl Bricker in Canada isn't having a dialogue with me. I think Charlie Kirk was. So I'm disappointed, and yes, he said all those things that I have seen posted all over social media. He did say those things. I'm also telling you, I had said at one point, we should hit Jeb Bush as a Democrat. We should hit Jeb Bush because he's removing the Confederate flag from the state capitol. If I were permanently tarred and feathered by that quote, I would be, I don't know what I would have done. Maybe I would have, I don't know what, you know. So you can't obsess over these little things, and that's the problem with social media. And people say things in jest sometimes. People say things, and when they're clipped, they're taken out of context. But yeah, so that's my little spiel. Let's try and all get together. Let's try and all get along. And to the media, this video is actually being specifically made for the media. To the media, you need to do better. You need to know American history better. You need to represent what's happened in contemporary America better. And you've got to stop. If you are an on-air personality at a media channel, you need to stop with the whataboutism, and you need to stop with the winding up. If someone is responsible for this, beyond social media, for what's happened, and ultimately the very sad assassination of Charlie Kirk, it could be the American corporate media, more than left or right. Unfortunately, I have to say that. And I hope everyone stays safe out there, and please try and get along.